talking about handouts that she will give you in terms of what artworks.
October 13th.
It's Thursday.
Yeah. I have the syllabus right here. It's October the 13th.
I thought you were saying today was actually. I thought you were saying today was on your.
Yeah,
it better not be.
well,
Or if it is, I didn't put it up on the
And that's like 20 midterms.
Same time.
And she's gonna give us more information about that.
She's going to do what?
More information.
Yes. She'll talk to you and she will give you a handout with a limited, amount. A shorter list of the artworks you're supposed to know from the handouts you've been given. But honestly, look at all your handouts as prep for the midterm. Those quotes are fair game, and supportive evidence or little ball blurbs she gives you as background information will help you study. Okay? Go ahead and bring your papers to the front right here. And we'll get going. So my first question is, are you registered to vote? I don't care who you vote for, but I don't, but I'm not going to say. but please have a voice. You know, I became an American citizen specifically to vote in the last election because it mattered to me so much. So voting is a privilege. Voting is a right that was acquired by a lot of people fighting for it, so exercise it. Okay? Now, let's do our rapid fire image for today. Author, date, title, medium.
Manning. 1870 maybe? 1600.
It's about the communard.
It's about the communard. So if it is about the communard, what date is it specifically? You were very close, Leo.
1871.
Did you say 1871? Yes. Okay, good. This is a date you need to know. Okay? The commune happened in 1871. Okay. What is the title of this artwork? Huh? Okay. I totally twisted my ankle. Okay. What is the title of this artwork? The Barricade. And what is the medium? It's a lithograph. And lithograph is a form of printing. Okay. Now, what are the key issues, themes that you would need to tell me about on the midterm if this were to show up?
He's representing France as the shooter,
Yeah.
like execution of Maximilian.
Oh, okay. Unpack this for a second.
So he's in execution of Maximilian, he was like representing France, shooting France, and then here he's doing the same thing, how it's like civil.
So in execution of Max, he was not representing France, shooting France.
He was not literally representing it.
He was representing France, shooting the puppet empire of Mexico.
Oh yeah.
Here it's France shooting French, whatever. Yes. So what you need to tell me then, since you brought up the execution, is that what? This is, in terms of composition,
A very similar composition.
yeah, it's almost copied. It's almost, right? It's almost the same composition as the execution, right? So one way to word it would be he cites himself, or he quotes himself, okay? Now, in terms of medium, what matters to us about the medium here?
The fact that it's print makes it for mass production.
Great. That's one aspect. What other aspect here? In comparison to the painting, for instance. Basic stuff. There's no dumb in here.
It's quicker.
It's quicker.
It's black and white.
It's black and white. That matters greatly, right? Versus a color version that is painted. And because it's print, it's also mirrored. And because it's print, it's also smaller. So scale, color, mirroring, composition, all that matters when we're talking about a print here, okay? Any questions about how this artwork matters to us in the course? Right, the commune. If you don't know what the commune is, go back to the handouts, open a book, read about it. It's important for this class. Yeah,
This might be a really, really stupid question.
there's no stupid in here.
Why does it matter so much that it is black and white?
Ah, so much that it's black and white? That's a good question. That is a good question. Why does it matter that it's black and white? Again, this is not a trick question. To you, when you see an image, whether it's black and white or color, does it change things? Charlotte?
I think when it's black and white, there's more of a focus on texture.
Okay. Ruby? You were shaking your head. It changes things? Yes. For this, yes, because what we call chromolithography, which is lithography in color, has not really been invented. Yeah, Leo.
Like there's information about what you're seeing is not there, it's just black and white, only in grayscale. So like a painting, like you can see, I'd say if there was blood or something, you would see the blood, but there, you can't
Yeah, I
really
think
see everything.
it's really that basic. The information you're given in color and the information you're provided in black and white are just different. And sometimes one can make the information more or less ambiguous, just like the other might. Sometimes black and white can simplify, sometimes it can complicate, right? So when you talk about color or no color, it does matter, okay? Any other questions? And I'm glad you asked. There's no stupid in here, okay? All right, so let's carry on. Since we did not have time to do it, I wanted to kind of go over the Shiblisky a little bit so that we all feel comfortable talking about that article for the midterm, okay? So I brought up this photograph. This is a new photograph for us. You are not responsible for it, okay? But I thought it was interesting in comparison to the photograph that Shiblisky uses. So how differently does this image function in comparison to the barricade photographs discussed in the Shiblisky? Yeah, Riley.
I just have a question. Is this like a pre, like before the barricade is made, or is it already made? Because it looks like it's in cards, and I can't tell whether it's already been made.
I think it's totally arguable.
Yeah.
I would argue that it's already made because the cannon is right here and there's a little spot that's empty right here so the cannonball can go through. So I would argue that these are train cars have been actually brought there to build barricade. But then it could be argued otherwise that then it's not a mobile barricade.
I just couldn't tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody else had a hand up, yeah.
There is motion in the rocket cabinet first to take the photograph. So then in Shiblisky's,
Yeah.
they focus on stationary and static postures.
You said stationary, static, posture. Yeah, Willow?
I hope I'm remembering like the right reading, but like the whole like motion is because like, this one's like they're actually like in the process of building it, but in like the photograph, the other barricade photographs, it was like they were posing to show the complete work and like just show off basically.
It's a matter of posing. This photograph is not at all about posing. This photograph is about the action of living in a tumultuous time. God knows what they're doing. Are they actually contributing to the building of the barricade, or are they just going about their business, or they're just being curious about what's about to happen? The point is, they're unaware of the photo being taken. That's not the point. The point is not to register their presence. The point is to register the building of a barricade. Maybe it's a photograph that was done for technology, right? How do you build a barricade during the commune? Or is it just a document? We don't know. This is Shiblisky. For the longest time, I only called her Janine because I did not know how to say her name. But Darcy told me, so Shiblisky. She's at CalArts. And this is the photograph that she talks about, right? And it's very much about posing. What does Shiblisky tell us about you know, the communards, barricades, and photographs? Yeah, Leo.
All the communards were like working class people, so like this may have been like the first photograph they were taken of, so they like really took advantage of it by like posing, like they thought that was like associating themselves with history, I guess.
That's great. Yeah, what else? Marika, do you remember anything about the article and that photograph?
It opens self-expressions to not just the higher class as well, so
Self-expression. What do you mean by self-expression?
as in like portrait. Wait, what was that the other reading?
Tell me. Continue your
About
thought.
portraiture,
Okay.
or they have the ability to control some aspects of the photograph, as in like they're posing.
So here, what do they control?
The way that the stance.
Their stance, for instance, yes. Did you have your arm? Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say how this like essentially turned into a mugshot, so they're not actually in control.
So this leads us back to the reading about Bertillon and Galton, about the two rules of photography, which is honorific and repressive, right? These are people, we have different kinds of barricades. Sometimes it's like, yeah, the barricade is done and, oh, you happen to be here, sure, I'll pose. And remember which tells you the other anecdote? They actually took the stones out of the earth, built a barricade, go get a photographer, hey, and then put each stone back in the road. I mean, come on, right? That's really a need to be recorded, need to be part of our history, need to get, to be part of the honorific. And then what happens? The authorities got their hands on this photograph and said, do you know this man? Oh yeah, I do, he's my neighbor. Right? This photograph was like, hey, led most of them to their deaths or to exile in New Caledonia. Okay? So posing, that's what Przybylski tells us, for the communards facing the camera, the catastrophic is instantiated by holding still. Holding still was their death sentence. First, it was, I get to be honored, like a bourgeois, which I do not have the money to do myself, but then it is also my death sentence. Yeah, Maggie, sorry, you had your hand up.
Oh, no, I just, I think it's like very reminiscent of like how Black people are depicted in paintings. We're always trying to pursue that like honorific, or we're always trying to imitate the upper echelons of like society.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, I just thought it was
No,
interesting.
that's it. See, that's the problem with representation. Who's represented? In what context? By whom? And what is the aim of representation? You know, and that's the same for the dark body. You know, what Darcy talks about, you know, which I don't know if you read her book, Extremities, it's all about the dark body. So those are important questions, okay? And so then Przybylski tells us the communard posing on the barricades explicitly laid claim to the theatricality that is intrinsic to photographic reality, to the performativity that is the counterpart to its opticality. To be registered by the optical device, you need to perform. Even if you just stand like this, or you can stand like, hey, you're performing a version of yourself. No matter what version that is, okay? Especially in the commercialized realm of photographic portrait, okay? Barricade photographs as revolutionary images, okay? In their banal repetition, their purloined aesthetic. What do you think she means by purloined aesthetic? First of all, what does purloin mean? It's not a common word. I had to look it up years ago. Came to America. But what does it mean to purloin? To steal. Did you look it up? Awesome. Right? So stolen aesthetic. What does she mean by the stolen aesthetic of barricade photographs? That's very loaded right there.
Stolen from the bourgeoisie.
Ooh, tell me more. How so?
Because she says their tragic inability to imagine any other relation to the camera than the ones that had already been. So they've already seen these, like,
The little cards?
Yeah, the little cards of like the bourgeoisie that they carry around, and that's all they know.
Right.
So they imitate that in order to present themselves as honorific.
Portraiture. Right? And here specifically it's group portraiture, which was already also known. It's not always just a guy by himself, right? Or a lady by herself. So purloined aesthetic is the aesthetic of portrait photography. But then when you look at this image in conjunction with this one, it's also very much documentary. I remind you, this is Marville, right? Documenting Haussmann Paris. So here we have this document. So here we have this combination of document photography with almost journalistic element, with portrait, photographic portrait. So purloined aesthetic and their tragic inability, like you were saying, Maggie, to imagine any other relation to the camera than the ones that had already been. So we're borrowing from what we know. They remind us that the risk of an engaged relation to history as performative. So history is performative. When you want to be remembered by it, you're like, I'm part of it, look at me on the barricade, right? Self-conscious, you're doing it consciously, deeply invested in the battlefield of representation, is the surrender of voluntary will. The surrender of voluntary will. Does that remind you of anything else we've discussed in this class? The surrender of voluntary will. Leo, tell me.
Countess?
Totally! What is Solomon going to tell us about the Countess? She does not just internalize patriarchy, she surrenders to its terms. Right? So here, this is what's happening also. You're so part of a culture, you internalize its terms, and here it's internalizing the terms of photography. So no, they're not in control. I mean, they're in control to the point where they pose, but then they lose control. And really, who's in control? It's the culture as a whole, in a way. Right? That's a little ambiguous and it can be arguable, but that's the point that Shiblisky's trying to bring across. Any questions about this? Does this help clarify the article a little bit? Right? There's more details, there's more nuance, so I invite you to go back and read it. But these are moments that are important to us. Yeah? We're good? We can move on? Cool. This is our buddy, Monet. All right, so both in this class and in section N in lecture, I hope you don't get confused when we say Manet and Monet, right? If you want clarification, we can call them Claude and Edward, or Ed, right? Edward Manet, Claude Monet. This is not the Monet we're talking about right now. This is. He's a young dude, okay? And he grew up in the north of France, and he was well known as a teenager for doing caricatures of the people of his town. Very few people talk about Monet in those terms. He was a graphic artist, and he had humor, you know, and he was very attentive to the physiognomy of people, okay? To do caricatures, you have to be really alert to, oh, what does that nose look like? And I'm going to blow it up because it's funny, okay? So that's his youth. And then he trained with Boudin. And Boudin actually saw one of those caricatures in the front window of a shop. And he said, hey, kid, you've got talent. Study with me. And Monet was like, dude, I'm 15. I don't want to work. Come on, you're good. Work with me. Okay, so that's how he got to painting. So we saw this in lecture. Rehearse for yourselves what Darcy told you about this. What are the aspects that matter to us here? Who said scale? Nice. Scale is huge. What is it about scale? Can you be a little more descriptive?
The on the grass one was really intended it to be really big, which
Did you want to say something else?
no.
Okay. Riley, then Lido, then...
Okay, so the scale connects to the fact that the smaller one in the forest has spontaneity to its brushstrokes, whereas the brushstrokes in the bigger one are more mimicking each other because it's such a large scale.
I guess to continue with that, yeah, the small scale of the forest of Fontainebleau, he's able to just do small brushstrokes, a lot of them very quick, but he's having trouble translating that technique to a larger scale. That's why it's very blocky in the big one.
I was going to say the same. You struggle with the spontaneity.
Okay.
Larger.
So here we're talking about issues of making and choices, right? Choices in making. What else?
He wanted to prove that he was more modern than Manet.
Yeah, how?
Because he wanted to do a real luncheon that was realistic, because he was going to do a real background, unlike Manet's, which looks more like a studio setup.
So let's use naturalistic rather than realistic, since realism in this class is more Courbet and lower classes, right? So naturalistic. I believe in this garden kind of thing. Yeah? Okay. So more modern than Monet in the naturalism of his depictions. Yeah, Willow.
He was sort of hypocritical of that kind of aspect though, because he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make it natural, but then he took his two only friends and posed.
Nice. Okay. So So there's artificiality here in the fiction of naturalism, right? So first of all, in terms of models, and that touches on one issue you have not spoken about, is the fact that one painting has figures and the other does not. Start with the basics, always. This is pure landscape. This is landscape with people, okay? What is the other fiction in terms of having those people pose and the making of the painting?
He wasn't actually this high class.
Aha, he was not actually this high class. Yeah, Monet has a lot of money troubles. I will tell a little story in a minute. Where was each of these made?
Outside.
The one on the right is plein air and the one on the left is in the studio.
Right. Plein air. Is everybody clear on plein air? P-L-E-I-N space A-I-R. Literally painting outside. Okay, so one is actually done outside. I carry my stuff around, I set up, I found like, yeah, this is my viewpoint, yeah, I like it, turn my canvas, do the thing. Then the other one is in the studio. Okay? What is that issue here that Darcy talked about? You touched on it already.
It's like too big, so instead of getting like the quick like fast like strokes like here we go, it's like okay, I gotta fill this in.
Right? I gotta fill this in. Fill this in. That implies boundaries, right? And something that is inside instead of a flick, 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 right? And so when you talk about boundaries, a word that would be helpful to you is shape. We now have shapes of highlights rather than touches. Yeah, Charlotte.
Did he just not like use smaller brushes because it would take too long? Is that why like he didn't use more detail?
When he painted really, really big? So it's actually not the issue. The Academy works in gradation of tone to make you believe in texture and volume. The avant-garde doesn't really care about that, right? So to be reactionary, you have to go against what is done. So if you're going to go against what is done is gradation of tone to make you believe in texture and volume. So I don't want to do that. Therefore, flat color. So flat color, you just take a big brush and go.
But in the landscape, he like used smaller strokes.
Oh, in this one?
Yeah.
Yeah? So I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, I was just asking like why did he have a block of color there, and like why in the legend on the grass, like why didn't he do a better job?
Help her with that. Why? We just talked about it.
When you're painting that picture, like that's just like not something that you can do with the brush, basically.
Oh really?
This one is massively big. Massively big. This one, it's about this big. So literally one of these little leaves is, that's it. That highlight is about that big. It's about a third of the other painting. So that's why. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. I just like don't really get why he didn't want to put more detail in.
Because he was reacting against the convention of the Academy. Because detailing implies believability of volume, of groundness. Does that make sense? Yeah, is anybody confused about that also?
So he could have realistically made more detail, but he just didn't want to.
Totally. He totally had the skill. I mean, when you have somebody who creates shading like this, look at this. He manipulates light and shadow really well to make you believe in the recession of that nose right here. He knows how to do it. Yeah, Hugh.
Then does that mean that scalability was not the issue to why he made it chunky?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Does that mean that scalability is
Scale,
Or-
like scale?
or yeah?
Yes.
It's not the reason why.
I
it's
believe
all
scale
chunky.
is the reason why he...
He made it.
You said he has the ability to do it, but he just didn't want to. But that would mean that scale wouldn't matter.
Sorry, okay. Back up.
I'm confused.
Yeah, so he wants to paint big to imitate Manet, who is trying to do contemporary history painting. History and painting is big. So that's why he's painting big. But he does not want to paint history painting the way academic painters paint history painting. That's why he's painting, he's applying paint in a different way. And it's becoming more blocky, more shape-like, rather than a gradation of tone that you call detail or dexterity or whatever you want to call it. Is that clear? You're like, no. Can somebody use different words to explain it?
I think I kind of get it. I think it's just like, because it's small, it's like easier to use like less detail to make it look good, but like on a big scale, it's like so obvious, because like it's a small scale, yeah, like he like just like uses a flick of his brush and like we believe it, but in a big scale we don't, because it's bigger. Is that like,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that works. Thank you. Leo, did you want to add to that?
Mm-hmm.
Anya?
So was there any like struggling in his attempting to like scale it larger and not being used to working in that format?
Struggling?
Like
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yes.
I like get that sense from the blockiness of
Yes, that is definitely a struggle for him.
Okay, so there is some part of it of his like just not being used to working in that format.
Yes. He's trying to contribute to the advancement of contemporary painting, but he's not finding his way because this is not how he was trained. And actually, let's go to it now. What do you see here? Yeah, Leo.
People at the beach.
People at the beach. Okay. Does anybody see something else? Color. Color blocks.
Paint strokes.
Paint strokes. Okay. So, people at the beach is the analysis of what is actually on the canvas. Your brain recognizes an assemblage of brushstrokes. So like, this looks familiar to me. Oh wait, I see somebody seated. I believe this is an umbrella. And so my brain goes, these are people. But what you actually see, what is on the canvas, are just brushstrokes of color. And they're done in a way that, you know, to use Charlotte's language, it lacks detail, right? Just like, that is Boudin. That is Monet's teacher, who paints very, very small, meaning that this is absolutely tiny. So you see how when you want to do a highlight right here, you go, but when you do it big, that's when it becomes problematic, and it becomes a big-ass shape. Sorry, I did not say it.
Whoa, that's so funny.
And I believe this is actually still too big. Boudin is tiny. This is massively large. This is how Boudin paints, okay? And these are very full compositions with a bunch of people. So when you go, Darcy was not exaggerating when she said you have to look this, and each of these little people sitting on the beach, there's 15 of them. That's how big Luncheon is. Okay, do you see it here? And here you have one section. And if you pay attention, here the photograph, the negative has been printed backwards. It's mirrored, so the composition is actually mirrored. It should be seen the other way. Okay? So just a little story in terms of the social class. You know, Monet was not as affluent as he pretends. Why was this cut up? Darcy didn't get to it in section. Thing is, Monet was renting a house in the suburbs of Paris, and he was so broke he could no longer pay his rent. So he got kicked out. And so he left this painting to the landlord. And he said, you know what, just keep this as collateral, you know, or sell it or something to pay my debt. And the guy said, dude, this is like ugly. There's nothing I can do with this. I can't sell it for money. You know, so he rolled it up and put it in the cellar. Many years later, Monet comes back with money. He's like, here, can I have my painting back? It had rotted. It had rotted away. So these are bits that he could not salvage. And this is why we only have this left. Okay? Now think about it. Even in the cutting, there were decisions made. There were compositional decisions made. Okay? Because these two, he could have just made one big one like this. He chose to divide them in a way to create two more paintings. But think about the agency, the authorship, even at this stage when his own painting is destroyed, to create two more. Okay? What is this painting again? It is the Seine at Honfleur. So Honfleur is in Normandy. It's by the sea, and so the Seine is it's what becomes the river Seine that goes inside Paris, through Paris. Okay, so I put this up to show you. This is an early landscape by Monet, but let's go here. Ooh, yeah, this is just a matter of scale. I just thought it was so funny. It's an actual Polaroid of this lady in front of her painting. But to show you scale, right? Because with Monet's scale, it's gonna matter, okay? So what do you see? How would you describe, compare and contrast those two paintings if this was on the midterm?
The left one has smaller brush strokes and like I guess more precision. Than the one on the right.
Okay.
The objects on the left are a lot more pronounced than the right. Like you can see where they are a lot clearer rather than coming up with it.
I'm just going to write stuff down to remember to then address them. Keep talking.
The one on the left looks more airbrushed and more just perfect in terms of like being seamless. While the one on the right, you can definitely tell it's paint.
The left one is a convincing use of depth and scale because the building in the background and this kind of atmospheric perspective. The Monet painting is very flat because it lets itself known to be paint. It's like it is paint. So, and the trees in the back kind of push the background to the front. It's like a very homogeneous, massive green.
I'll probably try to make an argument that the one on the left is historical narrative or religious or allegorical painting, while the Monet's is more of a perceiving sort of experience. It's trying to capture that moment right then, and through individual brush strokes and just relying on a sort of like eye to hand observing, I think he creates a more credible sort of contemporary scene.
I would say to the left kind of, for me, looks more like an exact moment in time because it's, you know, more precise. But on the right, since it is kind of like those strokes and blocks, it kind of suggests a little bit of movement. Just like, I know you can't really compare it to like the photography with the movement and all that. Since they're not, you know, exact, you know, suggests.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Okay.
I think even though the left is more convincing kind of in its depth, like the water effect is very, it's not as kind of, doesn't capture the movement of water like Monet does with the small brush strokes that kind of give sense to waves. This is just very a block of color.
Okay, so this right here is a block of color. Yeah, is that what you're saying? Okay, cool. Anything else? Yeah, Johan.
Yeah, sort of off what you just said. I think they're both painters are trying to imitate their most precise sort of version of water. But I think the one on the left is more of a, I don't know, a celebration of water, like how beautiful that is, while Monet is celebrating paint and the singular brush stroke.
It almost seems like the left, it's like a perfect reflection of the buildings, which kind of is a little like, it's not real.
Right, okay. Yeah, Charlotte.
The one on the left is in the countryside, I would say, whereas the one on the right is like probably in a park.
Okay. So question of place, okay. All right, I did this to give you a sense of what Monet is working against. This is a painting, it's old, it's from the 17th century. But you can go to the Salon in 1880, you'll still see this. The convention of landscape is very licked smooth. It's very polished. It is a genre that has conventions, right? Where believability, illusion, or making you believe in what you're seeing matters. This, you can see, I remind you the word facture, F-A-C-T-U-R-E, is the way the paint is applied, is very different. And it has very different affects and effects compared to how this is done in an academic manner. Okay? So he's departing on a lot of different levels. So let's go through a lot of what you said. One is clarity. The way paint is applied plays with clarity in terms of subject matter or composition, right? Here you actually know this is a human figure versus like, what am I seeing here? Well, I think this guy is half out of the water, perhaps, but what the heck is happening here? Here I see a dude, okay? Clarity in terms of, like you were saying, the different planes of the composition. We have the foreground, the middle ground, the background. Here the recession is a little more ambiguous, even though we do have this composition with beautiful diagonals, right? But the ambiguity of facture. Then the word depth, scale, perspective, recession, all play into composition, and that's how you describe this one, okay? Subject matter versus narrative. Do you have a sense of narrative here versus here? Okay? Credibility was one word that came up. What do you believe in more? So to a person, a contemporary of Monet, this might have been more credible because it's a life that he saw. He probably, Ifre Noir says, I see the cat was there, I totally saw it. It's totally credible. But is the way it's painted making that credibility more suspect? Versus here, it's painted in such a detailed way that maybe you believe in that space more. How does application of paint affect credibility to you? Then, the notion of contemporary. This is timeless, right? In terms of temporality, this is very specific. This is contemporary, all right? The notion of movement. There's a stasis here. There's a notion of you're there to investigate the landscape. You can actually move through the landscape, but it's very quiet. Here, the movement is not so much located in the bodies, it's located in the water. Right? So how does the application of paint give you the illusion of movement or the impression of movement? Then we had, paint and illusion. How does the application of paint yield illusionism or ambiguity? Okay? Just so you know, this is all you. You did great. Okay? Don't ever be intimidated by looking at pictures. What works great is to look at something in relation to something else. Okay? You can look at a painting by itself, but when you see how different it is from the convention, then it shows you how drastically it is departing. Okay? So don't ever be intimidated by using your words. Like, what do you see? What you see is completely valid. Okay? So let's carry on. Anything you want to say that you didn't get to say in lecture the other day when Darcy was talking about this? I just love how wet it looks. The illusion of just like reflectivity, but just wetness. Like right here, it's incredible.
It's weird seeing it blown up like big like that because I always I took Darcy's other class before too, last semester. So I've seen this painting, I've stared at this painting for a long time already. But every time I come back to it, I'm surprised at how little detail the people have. Because in my mind, I always think oh yeah, that's Monet's, people. There's the crowd. Oh, there they are. And then I see it, I'm wait, that looks so less than I expected.
Exactly. Yeah. This is in a way through. Oh, Anya, sorry.
What's this one called again?
The frog pond. If you want to do the French term, go ahead. In all its spontaneity or its fiction of spontaneity, look how methodical this is. This is a system. Remember this. This is a system. You have the blue, you have the ochre, you have the black. You have the blue, you have the ochre, you have the black. Okay? So he systematizes the fiction of spontaneity. To make you believe you're seeing that water at that one instant, and the second later you blink, the water will look different. But it is actually completely systematized. Does that make sense? Right? That's the Renoir. So they stood side by side, and I just love how they both have this thing above the, across the ridge here. It's like little line. He went with his brush, right? Whereas here we have a little bit more of a materiality to the cloth, right? And you can see, as Darcy said, the emphasis Renoir puts on fashion, right? And I just love this little dude right here. He's completely transparent. He's carrying towels for this lady, I think, maybe, but his legs are completely transparent, and so is his body. You can see the boat behind him, right? And look at the little dog. And that kid's gonna end up face down in the water, man. And you can see, remember what Darcy told you? Observation is eyes going to the hand, and then it is a set of choices, right? It is a set of choices to create a composition. Where is this in Monet? What did he do about this, right? What does this add to Renoir's composition, and what does Taking It Away add to Monet's composition? So the fiction of naturalism, of seeing that moment, is a fiction. It is a construction. It is a fabrication, okay? So when you think about this, right, this is done outside in plein air. This is constructed in the studio. But both of them really are fabricated. They're constructed just at different levels. There's different degrees of artificiality in their making. Is that making sense? Right? What do I have next? Oh yeah, this is a print to show you what La Grenouillère, the frog pond, was actually like in summer. Crazy busy. Darcy tried to give you the effect of like the busyness, like do not put your body next to me. Like no, too much. This is how busy it was in the mixing of classes. Okay? So it was a very popular spot, and it's talked about in the Illustrated London News, so outside of Paris. Okay? And then to give you a sense of what that little island actually looked like, right? So this is probably what Renoir was adding to his painting that Monet chose to edit out. So remember, sets of choices. Okay? So when I found this online, I was like, score! We have 2 pictures together to give you scale. Pretty small, right? Yeah, that's what you were saying. I'm so surprised. It's always weird to see it so big, because it is a small painting in comparison to this. So what is this painting? Déjeuner by Monet. Do we have a date for that one? I mean, we do. Do you know the date for that one?
1868.
Okay. So that's our friend Anne Wagner. What was Monet's ambition for or with this painting? I don't know what they're cheering for. Dude, I'm gonna close the door. I think you're watching yourselves. We're okay. There's no revolution happening. So what was Monet's ambition for this painting? This is when you take out your texts and you remind yourselves.
What was the question?
I figured I'd make it easy. I'm just gonna write it up on the screen. Yeah, Riley.
It's like to depict the necessity of bourgeois life.
Okay, that's one aspect.
Constructing subjectivity.
Ooh, constructing subjectivity. That is definitely part of the argument. Yes, something simpler. James.
He was putting the viewer like in his seat, right there, like in his eyes.
Okay, totally part of the argument too. Not where I'm going, but you all are kind of ahead of me. Willow.
Like what he couldn't have.
Oh, nice too. Okay. Anya, then Charlotte.
It's thought to like show the emotion and connection that he felt with the people, which is debatable whether or not that was successful.
Okay. Charlotte.
Just like showing what he thinks is normal.
What he thinks is normal. Okay. I'm going to tell you because we're running out of time. He was trying to contribute to modern painting. This was his contribution to modern painting. And you guys went ahead further into the argument and how Anne tells us where it fails, okay? So then just go for it. Since most of you had very strong opinions last night in your responses, which I love. Tell me, were you convinced by the argument? If you want to rehearse it for yourselves a little bit as you argue with it, just to tell me what worked for you, what didn't work for you. You had so much to say last night.
Like, what I wrote was that, like, I don't know if I, like, can like, actually believe it, because, like, it is, like, a really, like, big stretch just from, like, this kind of stuff, but, like, I, like, want to believe it, because it's, like, it sounds like a gossip magazine where it's just like, oh, this is like, oh, wow, dang, like, I want to tell this story to, like, my friends, like, wow, Monet's life was, like, bad, he was, like, sad, man, but, like, I just don't know if I can believe it, like, but, like, she makes me want it.
Okay. And believe in what?
Just believe in, like, the whole, like, aspect of, like, why he painted, like, the whole, like, the failures, like, why he gave up, like, the whole, like, oh, it's because of, like, the scandal and, like, what he was trying to hide, that kind of stuff going on. And, like, his shortcomings in life, basically.
Yeah. James, you were talking about the chair.
Yeah, she talks about that a lot. How
Yeah.
he really was kind of transitioning because he wanted to like separate himself from the pictures in a way, and like put the person there in that.
And the person being who?
Like the viewer.
So we're supposed to walk in and sit right here?
Well, he kind of was like taking that aspect of it out, and really like separating the two.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
No, it
I
is.
found like that part of the argument really interesting, in a way, and he like really struggled with it.
So he's distancing himself, but he's implying, or she's implying that he's implying that's actually his spot.
Yeah.
Right? How do you feel about that claim? That it's actually Monet that's supposed to be sitting right here?
I agree.
You agree?
Yeah, because she was talking about how he was so like ego-driven and like trying to portray that he's like higher class than he is. So like I think it would really make his ego feel better if he thought that.
Okay. Okay. What is Anne arguing was the problem between Monet the painter and Monet the man?
It's like he couldn't really like connect with what he thought of himself as in his paintings, or like what he tried to, or she argues he tried to portray himself as, and so that like internal conflict and like emotional warfare, which I thought was kind of a stretch, that's what really like troubled him in her opinion.
Okay. Yeah, good. Charlotte.
There's like a fiction in his paintings and his letters, because here is like a happy family, like a normal family, but that's like not what he had.
That's actually your response, Charlotte. You were very succinct, but you were right to it. Wagner uses both letters to Monet and Basile to argue that the Déjeuner is a self-portrait and egoistic painting. Her argument is based on her interpretation. Hello. That has both letters and paintings as fictions of Monet. Both are a construction, and even the letters are having a voice shaped for Basile. Okay, so neither are a true representation or a true evocation of who he was as a man, because he himself was conflicted. So let me go back to other quotes, right? The Monet who made his pictures and the one produced by and within them are not identical, right? As a painter, Monet was intent on offering his own identifiable intervention in the practice of modern painting. That's what I was saying, right? He wanted to contribute to modern painting, as opposed, in a different way that Manet had been doing. A contribution which, though it rested on an imaginary domesticity, on representing the normal life of the bourgeois family, his painting aimed to undercut its imaginary status by grounding it in observed phenomena. Okay, that's the opposition of Manet. Manet is a fiction altogether, right? But he's trying to say, I'm going to be new and avant-garde because I'm observing actual life. But what is actually happening is that Monet painted the fiction which the bourgeoisie most treasured about itself, which is the fiction of family life. And that is not really an observed phenomenon, because his life did not adhere to the fiction of the bourgeois family life. the programmatic endorsement of the bourgeois belief in the family does not sit well with Monet's identity because of his personal circumstances, right? He's a little poorer than the average bourgeois. He's not married, and his child is illegitimate. So if we go back to the painting, right, we have 30 seconds, be brilliant. Who's this? Camille. Who's this? And who is she playing? Who's this compared to that? The mother. The actual mother is now playing the mother, right? And the person who's supposed to be sitting here is Monet, but Monet, does he have a right to be the patriarch of a family that is not actually his? He does not fit the ideal. So as a figure painter, he's trying to contribute to figure painting, but he cannot actually do what he claims he's going to do, which is painting the observed life. And the secondary argument is that he cannot stand people looking back at him. Okay? So that's very problematic. The tree's not going to bother him. He's going to paint the tree. And the haystack. And the cathedral. We'll see it later. Okay? Any questions about this? Is the article a little clearer now? Right? I think you guys are exhausted. How many of you did not sleep last night? Okay? Just before you leave, I know some of you have to run. That's fine. You can start leaving. How was it writing this paper? Difficult? Really stressful? What else? No, I'm your mediator here. You can just tell me whatever you want to tell me. Okay? Just be honest.
I thought that 2 quotes was too much for 5 pages.
Too much for 5 pages? Okay. Yeah.
There wasn't a clear prompt. It was just like a lot of words that I was trying to figure out what you want me to do in the end or write about. So
yeah. But do you feel like you managed to do a good job?
We'll see.
So I want to tell you that I've graded this exercise before in a previous iteration of this class. It's doable, okay? And Darcy is giving you a hard exercise because she believes you can do it. This is an upper division course, okay? And she could dumb it down. She could dumb it down and just, not challenge you at all, but she's challenging you. And yes, it's too much for 5 pages. Guys, hang on 1 second. It's too much for 5 pages, but what she's teaching you to do is be succinct. This is about synthesis. This is about sophisticated analysis. And she's teaching you that because those skills are going to serve you for the rest of your life. Maybe in a cover letter for a job or whatever you do. Being succinct and having a really high level of analysis is totally doable. And if any of you want to go to grad school, having to deal with both an artwork and literature and even the historical context, it's what you're going to have to do every day. So Darcy believes in you and she's training you for to be students here at Berkeley at that level. Okay, she's not going to dumb it down for you. So yes, it was hard. I've graded this before. I'm understanding of the conditions. And now you're prepared for the second assignment. All right? Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you tomorrow. And if you have any questions, come see me. Papers over here, please.
Wait, I just have one question. So, when it comes to
It was too much.
Really? Oh my God. It's a perfection.
yes.
And that you will be able to adhere to his claim when he doesn't. When he sees the haystack at morning, he's actually thinking this.
I think it's more just like.
Right, but his contribution in terms of
it's just like complicated way of thinking.
not cast, he's actually.
Do you think she would actually take a voice out? When I like I
Because like there's no sense.
Yes. They're like a couple times over 5.
Yeah, I just figured out a way to